is or something in that nature. It's basically tell you that sometimes the graph will mislead your audience. So you have to pay attention to how to organize your graph. But you can read through that. I don't think they ask you that much on your homework on Connect Math, but you can read through it in terms of the misleading graph, okay? Let's take a look at chapter 3. And again, the last item on your test, on your first test, on test number 1 is chapter 3.1, chapter 3, which is we have 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3. But I don't think I can finish 3.3 today. So today, this thing here is only 3.1 and 3.2. So let's take a look at this item here, which is 3.1. So 3.1, this is what we have is measure the center of your data. We want to measure what is the center of your data. So there are 3 items that we have in here, which is we want to find the mean. Before this class, they always ask you what is the average. And in this class, we call it a mean. Basically, it's the same idea, is we need to find the average of your data. So the 2 things that you have to, which is from here on, you need to distinguish the difference between the sample versus population. And to do that, you have to remember your notation. So this is what we have is X bar, which is X bar related to a sample mean. And this is a mu, which is mu related to population mean. To calculate the sample mean or population mean is the same. It's basically tell you take each of your data, individual data, add them up, and divide by the total number of data, okay? So again, same thing for population mean. You just take each of your data, individual data, add them up, and divide by the total number of data, which is the N here. So the capital N is basically to illustrate that we have a population, and a small lowercase n is say that we have a sample. But again, the summation is basically tell you to add each of your individual data up, okay? So looking at this thing here, here come statistic rule of decimal. So unless Connect Math, which is in this class, all of your materials on Connect Math, which is your homework, your quizzes, and your homework, your quizzes, and your test is on Connect Math. Unless Connect Math tell you how many decimal they wanted, if they don't, you have to use the rule of decimal, meaning you have to give them 1 extra decimal than what they have. So instant, if your data is a whole number, then you give them 1 decimal place. You route to the 1th place. If your data is 2 decimal place and they don't tell you how many decimal places they want you to route, then you have to give them in the answer as 3 decimal place. So you route into the 1000th place, okay? So basically that's the rule of statistic in terms of decimal is you give them, if they don't ask you, then you have to give them 1 extra decimal than your original data, okay? Now let's take a look at the other 2 items, which is the median. What is the median, or how to find the median? Well, the median is basically we try to find the middle of your data. The middle of your data is your median. And how do you find the median? Well, the first thing is we need to arrange your data. And then after you arrange your data, you need to ask yourself is my data, or is the data odd number? If it's odd number, the middle number is your median. If the data is an even number, then the middle 2 number, you have to find the average, which is basically you take those 2 numbers, add them up and divide by 2, and that will be your median. Okay, so again, those are the only 2 things. If it's odd, life is easy. Just cross them, and whatever left over, whatever the middle number, that's your median. If it's even, the middle 2, you add them up and divide it by 2, which is the average of the middle 2 number. Okay, and lastly, we have the mode. The mode is basically the easiest one of all, which is you don't have any calculation. There's nothing to calculate. All you do is you take the item, whatever item that you have, and then you ask yourself, which is in this case, you ask yourself how many, what item appear the most. Somebody have a chat question? my chat does not pop up on me. Someone type in the chat.
I was wondering, do you have these notes posted on Canvas? That way, like, we could print them out and maybe make notes on them instead of our notebooks.
I have the note at night when I post this. You know, when I post a video, I post a note. So you will have the copy of this thing here by tonight once I have the video up.
Okay.
All right. The last thing we have, and again, the reason being is I want you to see the question in terms of kind of see it first, and then if you have it, the thing in front of you, you probably won't pay attention to the item. That's why I kind of post it afterward, not give it beforehand. Okay. The last thing I have is not the last thing, but the resistance here is basically, the resistance is basically tell you that if the item does not affect it a lot by the value, then we say that it's resistant. So one thing is the difference between the mean versus the median is the median, we try to find the position of your data. Okay, so because we find that the position of your data, doesn't matter if you have an extreme value, right? For instance, if you have a bunch of data close together, let's say a lot of students make on the test, they make like 70, 75, 80, you know, around those areas, and someone make is like 100, or someone make like 25. Those two extreme number will not affect the median because we just find the position of your data, right? It's affect a little bit, but it's not damage in terms of affect very much. But if the mean, then it will affect a lot, right? Because if you take each individual and add them up, which is later on you will see that the two extreme we call an outlier, right? Because of the outlier, they affect your item and they affect a lot. And because they affect a lot, that's why we say that it's not resistant. Okay, so again, resistant is basically your data do not affected by your outlier or your extreme number. Okay, and you know, I think Connect Math asks, is it resistant or not? Basically, the median is resistant and the mean is not. The mean were to be affected if you have extreme number. Okay, so let's take a look at the three items we have, which is again this one here. I give you this item and I ask you find the mean, find the median, and find the mode, right? And again, clearly you look at this thing here, you can answer the mode, right? The mode is basically what data appear the most. We can see that -20 appear twice, right? But let's go back to the mean. How do you find the mean? Which is again, the mean is basically all you need to do is take each of your data and add them up and divide by the total number of data, right? So you take each of your data, in this case, you have -20 plus 15 plus 21, so on and so forth, divided by the total number of data, which is 6, which is, again, you add them up. There are some positive, some negative, so you have 10 divided by 6, you have 1.666666667, right? And again, the purpose of this one here, I purposely give you this thing here because I don't tell you how many decimal I want it to be. We have to use the rule of decimal, which is you have to give me one extra decimal than my original data. Everybody see my original data doesn't have any decimal, so you just basically give me 1.7. Okay, that's the rule of decimal for statistic. If I say round to the nearest 1,000, then you give me 3 decimal place. Okay, if I don't say it, you have to use the rule of decimal. And again, what about the median? Well, the median, reminder, the median, the first thing we need to do is we have to put the data in order. So our order is the smallest number to the largest number, which is -20, -20, -5, and so on and so forth. And again, all you do is you just basically, you cross them out, and in this case, everybody see that because we have 6 data, the -2 number will be my 2 number I need to do, which is I need to take the 2 number, add them up, and divide by 2. Because I only have 2, I divide by 2, which is everybody see that 5, which is 5 is somewhere here, somewhere in between -5 and 15. 5 is somewhere here. That would be my median. And lastly, the mode is basically, again, you look at your data, whichever data appear the most, that will be your mode. Okay, so again, you probably encounter this along the way. This is probably not the first time you encounter this 3 item here, but if it is the first time, hopefully it's not that difficult. Okay, now the other thing is, because we're in here, which is, you know, we can use the calculator to find this item. We can find the mean and we find the median. The mode, the calculator cannot, again, the mode, there's nothing to calculate. You look at this thing here, you glance through, everybody see that 3 probably will be your mode. It is the mode because it's the appear the most time, right? So how do you find, or how do you use your calculator? Well, the first thing is you need to press Stat, and then go to select Edit, and then press Enter, and then type your data in L1. And after you type your data in L1, you need to press Stat again, scroll to Calculation, and select 1 var stat, and then Enter. Okay, so again, once you have this thing here, your list will be L1, your frequency list will be L2, if we have L2, and your calculator will be calculate. Before we do this calculation, before I show you how to use your calculator, anybody have TI-84 in here? Does anyone have TI-84, or all of you guys have 84?
Yes, I have TI-83.
Okay, if you have 83, let's take a look at this thing. If you have the TI-84, this is let me show the 83 first, and then I show the 84. So if you have an 83, this is your 83, right? 83 and 84 is the same. But because since we have a student have 83, I will use 83 most of the time from here on out, because 84 is a little bit more advanced, so it will be a little bit easier for whoever have 84. So again, looking at this thing here, the first thing is we press in Stat. This is the stat that we have, STAT. And again, on the first item, this is your edit screen, which is, again, we want to edit first, which is, that's what I asked you to do, is press Stat, select Edit, and then press Enter, which is you. So here is, ladies and gentlemen, I already have some data here. This is what you want to do is, if you want to clear this row, not row, column, if you want to clear this column, if you go to L1, everybody see I go up to L1, please do not press delete. If you press delete, you tell the calculator to delete the whole item. You have to press clear and then press Enter. Okay, so again, if you press clear, press Enter, they clear the whole thing. If you take a look at this thing here, let me go to L3. I don't need L3. If you press delete, they delete the whole L3. Everybody see that L3 is gone. I don't have L3. So again, don't delete your item. Just click clear. Okay. So looking at this thing here, the second item, the second thing they ask you to do is you need to type in your data in L1. So the other thing is, make sure if it's negative, you have to use the negative symbol here, not the minus sign. If you use the minus sign, you might have an error. You have to type -7, right? Enter 3, Enter 19. Enter 17. So bear with me here. Let me type in my data, and then we will continue. Again, this is all we're doing is type in the data, and hopefully we type in the right data. So and everybody see right here, my -4, they have L1 12. That means I have 12 data. Okay, so if you go in here, you can see that we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. We have 12 data, so that's good, right? That's what we have, which is, again, that's the 12 data. And again, hopefully we type in the correct data. And again, that's good that we have 12 data there. We have the L1 here at this number. We have number 12, meaning we type in 12 individual items. As you can see, my 13 doesn't have anything. right? So once you type in the data, this is what they tell you to do is, again, to calculate, we have to press that again, and then scroll over to calculation. Everybody see we scroll, instead of edit last time, we have to scroll over to calculation, and you see the one var stat, which is number 1. You just press enter. So TI-83, this one here is good. TI-83, all you need to do is you press enter, and then you press enter, the calculator will do everything for you. You will say, wait, you don't have this because TI-83 doesn't have this window prompt, okay? If you have TI-84, when you press one var stat, you will see the list, you will see the frequency list, and you will see the calculation. Whoever have 84, those are the 3 things on your window. Under the list, you should have L1. Under the frequency list, you should have blank, meaning you have whatever you have there, you have to delete it. And then you select calculation, you press enter, you should have this output, okay? Let me go in. So whoever have 83, hopefully you guys have this same screen I have up here. Okay, if you don't, you probably did something wrong. Hopefully. Let me go 84, and then let me do 84. 84, like I mentioned, if you have 84, and again, bear with me here. From here on, after this one here, we would do 83. Oh man, I should choose a different number, different problem. But anyway, give me 1 second here, ladies and gentlemen. 83 and 84 is the same. It's just that 84 is a little bit more advanced. 15, 3, 0, 10, 3, 7, and -4. Bear with me here. So again, whoever have 84, if you click on one var stat, this is what you should probably see, right? If, for instance, let me type in, if whoever see this, if you see L2 here, everybody see that your list, you have to have L1. If you have frequency with, you have something here, you have to go in there and you have to delete it, okay? So again, your frequency list have to be blank. If your frequency list have something, they will tell you it's wrong or they will have an error. So again, 84, the window prompt basically tell you to put in what you calculate, which is, again, you probably have the same item, which is we have 12 data, 4.78, 4.75, right? Everybody see that X bar. So once you do the input, now we have to know what is the output, right? So what is the output? What are we looking for? Everybody see X bar. X bar, if you recall, X bar is your sample mean, which is, again, sample mean or population mean is the same. It's just a different notation. They give you the mean. Basically, X bar is your mean. Everybody see that 4.75 is your mean. And if you press down, if you scroll down, everybody see that MED, which is MED is your median. Your median is 3, which is, again, in this case, we have our median, which is, again, the Q1, Q3, we will do that. We will use those in 3.3. But for now, the only 2 things we're looking for is the mean, which is the X bar, and the median is the MED. Okay, so again, if you type it in, this what I have. I told you guys that, again, your screen should have this thing here, which is X bar, which is that's your mean. And again, if you scroll down, MED is your median. And this is where the tedious part of Connect Math is. Reminder, your mean is not 4.75, but it's only 4.8, right? If they don't tell you how many decimal they want, you have to give them 1 extra decimal, which is 4.8. Because of the 5, we route the 7 to the 8, we drop it, right? And the median is 3, and the mode is 3, which is, again, the mean and the median is equal. The median and mode is the same in that sense, okay? So question with this one here, question with how to use your calculator. Anybody have problem with calculator here? If you don't have question with the calculator, the next thing we have is how can we use the approximation, how do we approximate the mean with a group of data, right? What if we have a group of data, which is, if you recall, if we have a class and our class is ranged from the smallest limit to the upper limit, right? The lower limit to the upper limit. And we don't know what the actual data is. If we don't have a statement lib plot, we don't know the actual data. We just know that between 0 and 5, we have this many data. So how do we find a mean if we have a group of data? So to do that, the first thing we need to do is we need to find the midpoint, okay? We need to find the midpoint of each class. And basically, we want to find a number that represents the whole class. And to find that number, basically, you find the midpoint. So how do we find the midpoint? Basically, they tell you take the average of the lower class of the first item and the lower class of the next item, right? In short is basically take the first two lower limits, add them up, and divide by 2. Okay, so to find the midpoint is basically, the midpoint is you take the two items, add them up, and divide by 2. You find a small number, and the next number, add them up, divide by 2. Okay, so let's take a look at this thing here, which is, let's say if I have this item, or you have this item on your homework. So they say that this is your class. Your class is 0 to 15. You have 2 frequency, right? 16 to 31, you have 14 frequency, 32 to 40, so on and so forth. 47, so on and so forth. And again, if you add all of the frequency up, which is again 2 plus this is 16, 16 plus 6, that's 22. 22 plus this will give me 35, 35 plus this, that will give me 50, right? So we know that we have 50 individual data, but we don't know what the individual data is, right? To find a mean, we have to take each individual data, add them up, and divide by 50, but we don't know the actual individual 50. So in that case, this is what we need to do is we need to find the class midpoint. And to find the class midpoint, basically all you need to do is find the lower limit of the first class, which is in this case 0, and the lower limit of the second class, which is in this case is 16. And again, the author basically tell you take the two lower class limit, right? Lower limit of the first two class, add them up and divide by 2. Everybody see that the midpoint is equal to 8. And again, same thing go, if you take 16, add it to 32 and divide by 2, you will get, again, 16 plus this will give me 48, divide by 2 to give me 24. If you take 32, add 48 and divide by 2, you will get the midpoint of this class. If you take, again, you add, you get the midpoint of this class. But instead of doing that, let me ask you guys, what is the class width here? And if you recall, the class width is basically every time we jump, how many units we add, right? So the class width here, everybody see that the first class jumped to the second class, we add 16. 16, we add another 16 to give me 32. We add another 16 to give me 48. We add another 16 to give me 64. So if we know the class width, all you need to do is whatever your first midpoint is, all you need to do is add your class width. Okay, so for instance, let's take a look at this thing here, which is we know our midpoint. Our midpoint is, again, the first class. The first midpoint is 8. That's what we have here. Which is the next class. What do we do? Everybody see that I jump from 8 to the next class. I just add 16 because, again, that's my class width. That's how big each of my class is, right? And again, from the 24, I jump to the next one. I add 16. I add 16. I add 16. Which is, I told you, if you take 32 plus 16, right? That's your 48. 48 divided by 2, you get 24. So instead of do that for each one, just know what is your class width, and every time you jump, you add that class width in it. So everybody see where I get the 24, the 40, the 56, and 72. Now, once you have this thing here, this is the other stuff that we have, which is, again, we will use our calculator to save some of the headache, but no. Which is, this is what you need to do is you need to go to your stat and edit, type your answer, or not answer, type your data into your midpoint, which is your L1 is your midpoint, and your frequency is your L2. Okay, so the two things we have is we have to use the L1, which is your midpoint, because we're using this